everybody. Today's video is going to compare these two cars. I'm in a unique position because this 2011 Shelby GT500 has been modified. It has a 2.9 Whipple making 750 horsepower. And this 2020 Shelby GT500 is completely stock, making 760 horsepower. So they're 10 horsepower apart, but the cars are very different. Today we're going to talk about those differences, and we're going to take them out on the road and see how they drive, see how they accelerate, see how they brake, and talk about the characteristics that are maybe similar and different between these two models. So hopefully enjoy the ride. Alright, so both of these cars are the base models for the year. In 2011, you could get an SVT performance package that added 373 gears, 20-inch rear wheel. It had stiffer front springs, I think 20% stiffer. This is the base model, which came with 19-inch wheels. It had 355 gears, or has 355 gears. The boost on this stock is 9 psi boost. It did 0 to 60 in stock form. I think it was about 4.1, and quarter mile 12.7. I think rings a bell if I remember correctly. And this one has base seats. This is basically a no option GT500, just big engine, a lot of fun, a lot of get up and scoot. The 2020, also the base model, not the carbon fiber trackback model, has 12 psi boost. This one is, like I said, 760 horsepower from the factory. The 2011 was 550 horsepower from the factory, where the 2011 has a 5.4 aluminum block. The new one has a 5.2 aluminum block. Both have the plasma wire arc transfer liners, so to speak, on their blocks. And this 2020 has some options from the factory. It has the handling package, tech package, Recaro seats, carbon fiber dash, and I think that was it. Oh, car cover, and the Rapid Red was an upcharge as well. That was an option. But we're going to start with some more details about the 2011. I've owned this 2011 for well over 8 years now, and as you can see, it has quite a few mods. A lot of visual mods, which I won't get into here because this is more of a performance video. So let's see, talking performance from the outside before we pop the hood. I've got Toyo R888s before the R888Rs on the back. Best traction tire I've ever experienced, but come at a cost of noise. But these are 295 Toyos, and they're squeezed onto 9.5-inch rims. A little bulge, but no adverse effects that I've seen. And let's see, on the outside, well, I've got drilled and slotted rotors. Those are Disc Italia brake rotors. Original calipers, but added some ceramic pads to cut down on the brake dust for the chrome rims. On the outside, underneath in the back, which we'll see if we can see it, but I've got Bob's billet lower control arms. You can see down in there, Bob's billet lower control arms. I also have a phase 2 watch link, and the wonderfully sounding Borla S mufflers. All right, under the hood is where it's at, so to speak. So yes, I still have a lot of visual mods underneath the hood, but the big centerpiece, the 2.9 liter Whipple supercharger. This is the complete Ford Racing at the time 750 horsepower Whipple kit. Comes with the 2.9 Whipple, the larger twin 65 throttle body, intake, filter housing, double fuel pump that you put down the fuel tank, and the tune from Ford Racing themselves. And like I said earlier, this is rated at 750 horsepower crank. Whipple scream, a lot of fun, a lot of get up and scoot. It's a wild car. So the Whipple kit changed the car from 9 psi boost, 550 horsepower, to 17 pounds boost and 750 horsepower. Some other mods that you really can't see very well. There's a VMP twin fan dual pass heat exchanger on the front to try to keep temps down. This car, well, all 2007 through 2014 GT500s are highly prone to heat soak. So that's to try and combat heat soak and pulling timing and losing power. Let's see, you can see my JLT catch cans keep oil out of the intercooler. There is a one-piece DSS aluminum drive shaft with a safety loop underneath where we really can't see it. And then inside the cabin I have an Aeroforce gauge to keep track on. I mainly use it to watch boost, air fuel, and inlet air temp too, so I know when I'm about to lose power. But other than that, all the other mods are visual that I can remember. Those are the things that affect performance and sound and braking, stuff like that. So we'll move on to the 2020. All right, working our way around the outside of the 2020. These splitter wickers are part of the handling package. This car has 20-inch wheels front and back. They are 10 inches, let's see if I remember correctly, 10 inches wide on the front, I believe they are, and 10.5 in the back. The carbon fiber track pack has 11.5 wheels in the back. Massive brakes, 6 piston calipers up front, 16.5-inch rotors on the front of the car, whereas the 2011 has 14-inch rotors and 4 piston calipers in the front. In the back we have 20-inch wheels again, 4 piston Brembo brakes for the rear calipers with a separate, that's a electric parking brake in the back. And those brakes in the back of this car are the same size as essentially the ones in the front of the 2011 4 piston Brembos. And then on the back of the 2011 you see just a basic Mustang disc brake back there. And that rotor, I don't even remember how big that is. It's smaller than the front. Back on the 2020, around the outside, this is what they call the swing spoiler wing. And this part that sticks up is the gurney flap part of the handling package. Massive 5-inch selectable exhaust tips there. You have different modes where you can go loud from track all the way down to quiet. Those are 4-inch aftermarket Borlas over there, but they also sound fabulous. A few more points worth mentioning. The 2011 was the first year of the aluminum block. It was called the Condor. And it shaved about 102 pounds off of the outgoing 2010. Lightened up the front end. It also added electronic power assist steering, which was a nice add. The 2011 weighs about 3,800 pounds depending on where you look and the model. The 2020 5.2 aluminum block named the Predator weighs about 4,100 pounds depending on where you look, and it's about 300 pounds heavier. The oil, that's another point worth mentioning. The oil in this car, they both use 5W50, but 6.5 quarts in the 2011, 11.5 quarts in the 2020. The 2011 when new cost about $50,000. You know, of course, there were options in SVT Performance package, and the 2020 cost about, well, $75,000 plus. That's very stripped down, but you're looking at more like $80,000. Goes all the way upwards of $106,000 with the loaded up carbon fiber track pack. The top speed on the 2011 electronically limited to 155, and the top speed on the 2020 is electronically limited to 180. All right, time to take the 2011 for a ride. Some big things to point out here. It's got a stick, 6-speed manual Tremec 60/60 transmission. With that, these are a remote shifter. They're a little prone to shift grinding, especially going 1 to 2, and especially when you have your rear wheels free spinning when you lose traction. So with that, I won't be power shifting or banging the next gear. You gotta slow it down just a little bit, otherwise you can grind the gears. The other thing with this car, traction control is very intrusive. So I always hit the traction control button once. That turns off traction control. It says traction control off there, but it leaves stability control in place for when the rear end gets a little squirrely on you and steps out. It'll still reel you in. But this way you have full power, especially with the big Whipple on there. It wants to spin a lot, and that traction control is always reeling you in. It's always using the rear brakes, which burns up your rear brake pads, can put stress on the clutch. So every time I start this car, I hit traction control off, and here we go. All right, like I mentioned earlier, this car has solid rear axle, and it kind of rides truck-like. We're on a bit of a bumpy road here, and it's unforgiving. You got to be careful because the rear end can kind of wiggle on you a little bit, especially when you're hitting good gas and maybe hitting a bump in the corner. The whole axle will compress and kind of step to the side, especially since it has a panhard bar from the factory, which travels in an arc. My car, I've modified it with a phase 2 Watts link to help keep that rear axle centered, so it goes up and down straight versus in an arc, so to speak. It does cut down on some of the hopping, but it's still a solid rear axle, so you still have to deal with limitations of that design. This car, it's worth pointing out, has 35,000 miles on it. The 2020, which we're going to take out later, only has 400 miles, so you're dealing with an older car versus a newer car, but still this car is in amazing shape, handles well, drives well. I don't see any problems with it after over 8 years of ownership and 35,000 miles. Once we get into some more open roads, we'll have a little bit of fun and see what this car can do. All right, it's 66 degrees outside. We got the car up to 10. This car redlines at 6250. You'll hear my shift alert. I think I've got it set mid to upper 5s. But launching this car is a little bit of an art form. It never happens the same twice. And we are on an older asphalt road without the greatest of traction, but we'll try a little launch here. Here we go. It's fun. This car is a wild ride. You got to tame the beast, and this is a beast. So it requires it's a lot of focus. All right, we're going to try and do a little time run to maybe 120. Temps are 114, which are still full, giving us full power. So we're going to use a little timer on screen here. And you ready? Here we go. was fun. So we did an acceleration time, 0 to 120. We did a high-speed pass free to see what that's like from the side of the road. And I got on the brakes good after the 120 run. Got on the brakes a little bit after the roadside pass. And then we just finished with a 100 down to 0 braking with the camera on the side of the road. And I don't have much brakes. I don't have much brake action left. They are very warm, so I'm going to try and drive this car back and not use a whole lot of brakes. And don't forget that I do have aftermarket ceramic brake pads, but they are cooking right now. Closing thoughts on the 2011 with the 2.9 Whipple. Fun car. Fast, crazy, wild. It randomly tries to kill you, so there's that. It's when it's going in a straight line, it's a wild, fun ride, and every once in a while it'll try to step out on you, so you got to be careful of that. Of course, stability control helps. That was added to these cars in 2010. So like I said, when I drive this car, I turn traction control off. It kind of unleashes all the horsepower. I leave stability control on to save my bacon. But when you're out doing spirited driving, the heat is always a problem with these cars, especially when you're running more boost like this. So right now my temp, when we came to a stop there, was right at 120, 123. Where timing gets pulled is proprietary information, and I asked the Ford engineers and they wouldn't give me that number for this car for their tune, but every tuner does it slightly differently. I've always used 120 as kind of my rough wag for full power, and when this car has full power, it's a lot of fun. Now in the heat of the summer, my IAT2 temp, which is the compressor temp after the the air charge after the supercharger, that temperature typically runs 30 degrees above ambient, the outside temperature. But when you get into boost, it can go considerably up over 30 degrees above ambient. So once you start getting up into above 120, maybe 130, 140, 150, you're losing a lot of power, pulling a lot of time out of it. The other part of the heat problem are the brakes. Just a regular Mustang brake in the back, nice 4-piston Brembo up front, but there's no brake ducting, and it's only a 14-inch rotor, so it gets a lot of heat into it very, very quickly. And the other car that we're going to take out here in a moment is a drastically different story in that regards. But hopefully you've enjoyed the 2011. Next is going to be the 2020. Alright, as you can see, we are in the 2020. This car has 399.2 miles on it right now and like 35,000 miles on my 2011. My goal is essentially same driver, same day, 2 different cars, compare and contrast. The interior on this one, much different. We've got Recaro seats. They're fabulous. They lock you in nicely. Paddle shifting, no stick. There's been a lot of complainers about when this car came out having no manual. I've got 9 Mustangs in the garage, 2 more for my teenage sons, 11 total. They're all manual Mustangs except for this one, and I can attest Ford knocked it out of the park with this DCT. It is absolutely fabulous. The paddle shifting is, as my kids would say, fun AF. It's a good time. When I'm driving around town just playing, I'll paddle shift it. When it's time for performance driving, like you'll see in this video, put it in D and forget about it, simply because it accelerates so quickly. You're either going to short shift it with the paddles, or you're going to bounce it off the rev limiter. And if you're in D automatic shifting, especially in track or drag, and you're hammering on it, the shifts will nail exactly at 7,500 RPMs. That's a big difference in this car. Is the rev limiter is 7,500 RPMs versus 6,250 in the last car. So we are going to take this car out and we're going to try and recreate all the driving situations that we had in the last car, the same places, you know, so we're dealing with the same roads. And by the way, we're not on any really good roads today. They're all, you know, aged concrete or aged asphalt, so not the best of traction. It was 60, I think 7 degrees when we were in the first car. We just pulled this out of the air conditioned garage, so we're going to give it a few minutes to warm up, and we'll let you know what the temperature is when we're out driving. But other than that, this one is customizable at the throw of a switch, so we're going to put this sucker in track mode. And our dash just changed to track. Obviously, a big difference is the display. So the other car has 2 analog gauges, you know, tach and speedometer. This one just has a 12-inch LCD screen, and it's completely customizable. You can put it in different modes. We can go back to normal. You can see more of the traditional setup. There is my mode, which I have set up like a sport dash with track exhaust. And then we're just going to run this sucker straight in track until it's time to do launches, and we're going to switch it over to drag mode. We also have a selectable exhaust. The other car, 2011, has Borla S, which sound perfect all the time. This one, you can go from quiet, normal, sport to track. Of course, track is where it's at. I mean, it sounds fantastic. So we're going to put this sucker in D right now. We're going to hit the M button in the middle for manual shifting. And here we go, out for a drive. All right, we're starting out on the same bumpy country road. Whereas the last car has a solid rear axle, it kind of lumbers down the road. This has MagneRide and independent rear suspension. Now, of course, we're in track setting right now, so it's the stiffest MagneRide setting that we have. You can also select it to normal and you know, have a softer, more compliant ride. But since we're going out to play, we got it all set up in track. All right, talking about heat and this car versus the 2011. So the 2011, you know, I mentioned heat soak and brake fade. I can pretty much say Ford has made that obsolete with this car. I was lucky enough to get selected to go to the Vegas unveiling event for this car. So we got to take some passes down the drag strip as well as the road course. And these cars were going all day, every day for weeks with, first was the press and then us enthusiasts. And they were hot swapped, multiple trips down the drag strip, over and over and over and over, and they would pull the car out of rotation, fill it with gas, put it right back in. Same thing with the road course, you know, just hot swapping. They'd leave the cars running, one person would unbuckle, the next person would get in, take it out there wide open, you know, deep into the corners, hard on the brakes, just taking these cars to crazy levels all day long, every day, like I said. And there was zero heat soak, power loss, there was zero brake fade, just amazing. And if my memory serves me correctly, I think there's a total of 8 heat exchangers on the front of this car. There's also brake ducting. It's just Ford has really taken, you know, what they did with the S197 GT500 and really solved all of the deficiencies, so to speak, with the 2020. All right. We're laughing because we're just cruising slowly in drag mode, and I just gave it a little gas and the car just went ape shit crazy. It was, ah! So that was kind of fun. It's very twitchy when you're in drag or track mode. It's ready to go at all times. Oh, and by the way, we said we were going to check the temperature. It is still the exact same temp. We took the 2011 out, 67 degrees. It's still in the morning, still hasn't gotten full warm here yet. But we're going to do a launch here for you in the exact same spot we did with the 2011. So we're going to stop here because we can see now this car has drag mode and launch control, which we are going to use. So foot's on the brake, foot on the gas. Here we go. Faster just because the magnet ride and the independent rear suspension is much more controllable. But that was the first one. We'll do more. All right. My son just pointed out we have a little less than half a tank of gas and 62 miles to empty. So yeah, this car burned some gas. And another thing, I think I'd cycled through earlier and I saw like 8 miles per gallon average because I'm out here filming videos and having fun with the car. But another thing worth mentioning is, like I said in the 2011, so there goes Sheriff. Hello, Mr. Sheriff. We're behaving. The 2011 has Toyo R888s in the back, 295 width. Again, best traction tire I've experienced. This car, the base model, has the Michelin Pilot Sport 4S's, which are decent tires, but they're not as grippy as the Toyos are. And then the carbon fiber track pack car has the Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2s, which are softer, better, much better road course tire. As far as straight line, when I was at the Vegas event, we did the drag race track in base cars with the 4S's, and we did the road course with the carbon fiber track pack with the Pilot Sport Cup 2s. So interesting to see, you know, when the carbon fiber track pack cars get checked for straight line acceleration, how they compare to the base model. I'm sure they're going to be a little bit better despite the drag of the wing. All right, we'll do some performance runs here as soon as we get to the same spots. Settings, you have to go into your trip, but my average MPG 8.4 miles. But that's been a lot of you know, after we did the initial 100-mile break-in on this car, which I limited the RPMs to 5,000, never got onto it wide open throttle. After that, we've been having some fun and doing some acceleration runs. So 8.4 MPG. And 62 miles empty with a little less than half a tank of gas. All right, we're going to do the same 0 to 120 acceleration run. Hopefully we can keep the timer in the field of view there. This time we're going to be using launch control. Though the last launch control I just did in this car was 3,000 RPMs. This one I lowered it down to 2,000 RPMs. So we'll film the dash here. Foot on the brake, foot on the gas. Here we go. Harder than I did on the last car after the run, get it back down under control. So we're going to use a little timer on screen here, and you ready? Here we go. The same side of the road camera footage of you know, acceleration run from the outside, and we're going to have the same start point, same recording point. You can see, compare, contrast as the two cars are going by there. But the next shot will be from outside the car. Okay, that'll get the blood flowing. So the outside the car pass, same start point, same film point. I was able to get on the brakes and stop at a side road. The 2011 had to go over the next hill and turn around down at the next side road. But and then you just saw the braking performance. Again, 100 miles an hour. The start point of the braking was in the same exact spot. The 2011, the brakes were cooked, went well past where the camera was. The 2020 stopped basically right where the camera was. So night and day difference on braking between the two cars. We'll do another footage out the front and let you hear the sounds out the front of the car. So that last launch, we used drag mode, launch control, but we had a car pop up behind us over the hill, so I didn't really get time to get set. So we did a quick launch there, but it worked. Hopefully you got to see some good footage out the front on the GoPro. So we're driving this car back to the garage. No need to baby the brakes. I could stand on them right now, and they are 100% everything we got. Matter of fact, we'll do a nice little braking right here. Full analog braking. Everything you need are there 100% of the time. Big difference between the two cars. Both cars have great acceleration. Obviously, the Whipple on the 2011 has good get up and scoot, so to speak. The transmission, as much fun as it is rowing the gears, it slows down the acceleration quite a bit. Both cars, like I said at the beginning of this video, are same horsepower for the most part, but having to come out of boost, pushing the clutch pedal, find the next gear, get back into boost is a big difference than when you can stay in boost and just click off those shifts on this Tremec DCT transmission. That's really if you could pinpoint one of the biggest difference between the two cars, it's the transmission. This thing is absolutely epic. And then, you can always have fun by playing with the paddles, hitting the manual button in the middle, or just leave it D, fire and forget. But this car is more customizable on the fly with switches and options and buttons. Everything from the dash to the exhaust, the steering, the suspension, the modes, to shifting, you name it. Whereas the 2011, you're locked in with however you modded that car, and that's the way it always is. Both great cars, though. We'll do a little summation at the end when we get back to the garage. Back to the garage for now. All right, we're safe and sound back at the garage. We got a chance to drive both cars, same day, same temperature, same roads. We could tell where we were with this car when we brought this one out, because big old thick black marks from the Toyo R trim plates on the ground. So we did all the same. It wasn't one better surface than the other. They're both working off of the same old asphalt, aged asphalt roads. But hopefully got to see both cars in action. The 2011 is a fun car. Not going anywhere. I'm keeping this car forever. Love it. It's much more raw, if you will, than this car. Especially in this modified form. It's just a lot of fun to just get in there and bang through the gears. The back end's wild, untamed, but that's kind of the character or the fun of that car, if you will. This thing is way more refined. It's way faster. We'll have to play back the acceleration video and see the time difference. Now we're dealing with better traction, but we're dealing with better shifting, but about the same horsepower. So it'll be interesting to see the time difference on the playback. In the end, both are GT500s. They bear the Shelby name. Both are awesome cars. Love them dearly. And if you own one or even both of these, you're lucky to have them. I'm lucky to have them. I have a lot of fun. I've had a lot of fun over the last 8 years with this one, and the 2020 is a welcome addition. So if you have the means, go get yourself some. Thanks for watching. See ya.